8 for me. Are you guys okay with
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, I told
All
Tish
right, cool.
we'd get you out a couple minutes early since, we don't want you.
Sweet. Not that I
Yeah,
don't want to spend time with you, but when your boss asks you to do something, I'm like, all right, yeah, I can do that at 8 o'clock.
For a second there, I thought you were leaving us to go join Shane, and I was like, really? You're going to leave us to go hang out with Shane? Like,
No, never. No, Friedman wanted to do a Twitter Spaces thing with me at 8 o'clock tonight, so I was like, yeah, I'll do it. So
what's the
when
deal?
Friedman asks, you say yes.
What's the deal with Twitter Spaces and communities all of a sudden popping up again? Like
I don't know. I got invited to a community the other day. Now I've got to like start a fundraiser with a breakdancing group of kids. It's a whole thing. I don't know.
What?
Those tots.
Okay.
Tots. Yeah, but I thought we shotgunned that in the face 8 months ago. I thought we beat that down.
What, the Clubhouse thing, right? Yeah, that went away quick.
And now all of a sudden
now. We do it on stages. We do stages on Discord, which is great because it's your own community. The Twitter thing, I don't know. I've never done one. We're doing it tonight because he wants to do one. I was like, okay. He just didn't want to do it alone, so I was like, all right, I'll do it with you.
I get the why you have to, but
for us because it's pros, it's such a huge reach. I get it. You could probably get a couple thousand people listening. So if you guys have something to promote, I get it. I think it's more we're experimenting with it now to see if it's worth our time. I think that's what we're doing.
I'm about to start one up myself for best ball. Wahoo! We're gonna be doing them either on Thursday nights or Tuesday mornings. We'll find out.
Are we live?
We're live.
We just.
Well, that's a horrible idea. That's terrible radio.
Usually we have a Canadian in here, barely speaking English, talking about how he's taking the lift to the loo into Montreal, Quebec, and then eating frog legs or something. I mean, that's basically what it sounds like.
Poutine. That is the preferred.
Oh, poutine is delicious. The Canadian dish. And supposedly, what was it, bear claws or something?
Bear claws.
That's fine too.
Moose
that's
knuckles?
A donut.
Bear claws, yeah.
Maybe Tim Hortons any day of the week. That's what I want.
A moose
knuckle.
He had a
bunch of weird names for it. Beaver something. Beaver tails. That's what they were.
No.
What?
No.
Beaver tails, I think is what he was calling them. I don't even know. He's not here to explain, so it is what it is. Let's get the show kicked off.
This is Fantasy Intervention. Now here to intervene with your fantasy life, Shane Manila, Jacob Sanderson, and Chase Vernon.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome on into Fantasy Intervention. Man, we got a big show for you guys today. We have, of course, the draft coming up, and that means that we're going to have all sorts of startup drafts happening, rookie drafts happening, all sorts of weird stuff. We're going to see a lot of orphan teams pop up, and we're going to see a lot of orphan teams taking over. So we decided to, of course, have Shane in here as normal. Unfortunately, Jacob was not able to join us, so we decided to bring in Joe Pisapia from Fantasy Pros, of course, and DaddysHome FF. You guys probably know him if you're fans of the show from DLF. So welcome on in, guys. How is your day going? What's going on, Joe? You were talking a little about Twitter Spaces. What else you got going on?
Well, I was waiting for the transition when you were talking about a lot of orphan teams are going to show up. And speaking of orphans, Shane Manila is here with us tonight. I was wondering where that transition was going. I didn't know where it was going for a second there. I was a little disappointed. I thought he was going to do a little performance of Annie, perhaps, or something like that. But no, it's great. This is the second show I've done with Shane today now, and I love him dearly. So this is great fun. I'm happy to be here. And you're right. This is Dynasty season. This is that time where we're talking about, all those rookies and all the things going on there. And this is that hotbed for those of us who never stop playing fantasy football. So raise your hand. And this is great, man. I'll talk football 365 any day. So very happy to be here tonight, man.
Absolutely love it. And of course, Mike, what's going on, man? How's your day going so far?
Oh, it's good. So all of Twitter has decided I'm an idiot because I traded Jonathan Taylor this morning, which is funny because I did like a rookie wide receiver preview, and they haven't even seen it yet to see how really dumb I am. So the trade was pretty good. The podcast is horrible. So it's weird that they were that really clairvoyant to see how stupid I was. But yeah, so we did that, and so this morning or this afternoon I spent 30 minutes talking about Traylon Burks for the host to tell me he forgot to hit record. So I had to do it all over again. So I'm going on about an hour and a half of podcasting today. So yeah, this should be fun. I'll try to stay on point for you guys, but it's been an interesting day for sure.
To say the least. And Shane, what you got going on, man?
Man, I feel like this is a contest of everybody pulling it out. Like, oh, I've done 2 podcasts with myself today too, and I have to do another one after this. That's 3. Can you imagine doing 3 podcasts with me?
Oh, that's
that's a lot. And phrasing. If you're gonna pull it out and do more than one podcast with yourself, Shane, you might want to just rethink the verbiage there.
Well, and I am taking hour breaks in between because in my age,
that's good. Hydrate yourself.
Get some orange juice or something.
Podcast.
That's good. It's like Billy Idol. He podcasts with himself. It's always Shane. Always.
Mike, what was your trade? I want to make fun of it.
Oh yeah, no, it's good.
Me too.
This is wonderful. Let's get off on a good note to see how stupid I was. So I had got an offer last night of Amari Cooper, Zeke Elliott, a 2022 first, I think it was 106, and a 2023 second for Taylor straight up, which I had countered for Devonta Smith, Travis Etienne, 106, and a 2023 first. The trade we ended up settling on was Zeke, Devonta Smith, 106, 206, and a 2023 first, straight up for Jonathan Taylor.
All right, so you got 2 firsts, including one in the holy grail of the 2023 class, when every running back is Jonathan Taylor. Like, it's just bank it now. I don't like Ezekiel Elliott. No one does. His family hates him.
That's true.
He's a descending asset. Has been since the 3rd grade. How do you start? You start a lot?
What's that?
How many do you start? You start 11? Start 10?
Start 10, yeah. And the team stacked. I was really just trying to get assets to trade because I'm addicted to that. So now I have 102, 104, 106, 320, 23 first. Still have Eckler, Harris, Devontae Adams. The team stacked. I just get bored.
And you won the championship last year, right?
Oh yeah, no, I set the league record. Yeah, so this is it's a boredom trade, but it's one that I'm looking to. I had basically relied on Adams, Kelsey, Thielen have some older assets. So what I'm looking to do is try to turn a 1-year winner into a longer-term dynasty. So trying to get some backups. I figure I'll end up with Walker probably at 102 to replace Taylor, and then still have a ton of pieces to play with. And it's very similar to in 2019, the way I ended up with Taylor was I traded Gurley for 3 firsts, turned that into Taylor and Kelsey. So it's been kind of a long-going parlay. Yeah, as timing's everything, right, Joe? So it's kind of a parlay of I've turned Todd Gurley now into like 17 firsts somehow. And it's fun. I mean, you know how it is. If you're in the offseason and you're holding 60% of the draft picks, you get to pick your poison. So I'll be probably taking 2 of the picks and trading 4 of them if I had to guess.
Dude, so you traded a running back. I don't care how good he is. He's a running back for basically 3 firsts and Ezekiel Elliott, whatever you want to call him, like a 1.5, I guess, because I won't pay a first one. But yeah, I'm fine with that. I know Jonathan Taylor's basically the greatest running back that's ever lived, even though his scoring last year was one of the worst running back scoring seasons in the last decade. That notwithstanding, I like the trade.
I appreciate that.
Well, that's actually it's a perfect transition point to talk about, when you have these startups or when you're having to rebuild a team or whatever the case is, like, where do you want to go into these drafts? Where do you want to take your teams? And there's multiple different strategies. You could end up going for the win now, where you acquire a bunch of veterans at, good value in terms of what they're going to produce over the next couple of years. You have the strategy where you take all young players, and you try and find an up and coming team. And then you have a strategy where you pretty much dump your entire team and just try and pick up draft picks over the next few years to hopefully hit on a few of them. And like Mike did, turn them into multiple first round picks that just keep on producing more and more and more. So I'll start out with Joe on this one. Joe, do you have, like, when you go into a startup draft, right? Is there a certain or a particular strategy that you like to try and go for when you jump in, or do you kind of play the board and see what everybody else is doing?
Well, I've got a startup draft actually starting in a few days, so I'm faced with that right in front of me. Well, if it's super flex, to me, it's those quarterbacks are so crucial, especially those young ones you can lock in because you can build a team around Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes and be very competitive for a long period of time in those super flex formats. Plus, those guys are protected more physically, and so they're better investments. By that, they typically get hurt less. You got to watch a little with some of the more mobile quarterbacks sometimes, sure. But I think that's always something imperative when you understand the super flex format. Make sure you lock those guys in. I'm very big on building on wide receivers and also focusing on good offenses. I buy into the whole good ecosystem theory, whereas it's really simple, right? Good teams score more, scoring more is good for your fantasy. I think sometimes people get way too cute and they try so hard to make certain players or certain teams happen because they think there's potential for something. And instead of even in Dynasty, I want to win now. Like I want to win now, and I'd like to win in a couple years from then too. But I'm focused right now on trying to get the best team together I can with the best assets I can. And then I'll worry about the next year and the next year as things go on, because we all know these things are not guaranteed. You have so much injury attrition, so many turnovers of coaches, of systems, so many things happen, so many things change year over year. I mean, look at this year, right? I said going into this season, this is going to be back in December. I said, get ready, because this is going to be the greatest quarterback movement you have ever seen in the league in your entire life. And it exceeded my expectations. Now, I don't think it's going to be like this every year, but considering some of the patch jobs at quarterback we have this year, there's going to be a lot more turnover next year too. So I think that's something I always want to lock in. And like Shane was talking about before, it's the running backs you kind of devalue. I'd rather have a team built on quarterbacks and wide receivers because they're going to stay healthier. They're going to be more productive. It's a passing league. That's where we're at. And they're just better investments.
Yeah. Mike, when it comes to the investments and whatnot, are you somebody that doesn't care about what's going to happen 5 years down the road? You're thinking more closer or short term? Or are you somebody that wants to invest in future assets, like kind of how you did with this trade that you have going on right now?
Yeah, no, I'm very much a day trader. So realistically, when we look now, right, it's April. I don't have to set a lineup till September. I genuinely don't care what I'm getting. I'm bargain shopping, right? Like it could be Devonta Adams, it could be Devonta Smith. It truly doesn't matter to me. What I'm looking to do is take advantage of a situation that I think the asset will appreciate before kickoff. That's really my whole goal. So I look at the offseason as almost building like a stock portfolio with the intention that I will flip the assets for what will eventually become a starting lineup that I hope to be a win now championship. If I am rebuilding, it's an all in. I never go half on anything. And it has, and as you know, I just wrote an article with DLF on this. It has like a 1 year shelf life. Like I'm going for it and I'm dumping everything. I did that before the 2020 draft because I thought that was really, as we talked about with the Taylor trade, get as many picks there because that's a game changing draft. And I got Taylor, Swift, and Antonio Gibson. That changed everything, right? Yeah, I wish the running backs, but right now I could care less about where they play or even what age they are. And if I'm going to a startup, you really have 3 to 4 rounds to figure out where you're going because you can get young and productive in the first 3 or 4 rounds. So that's always the wise move. You're going to get Chase, you're going to get Jefferson, you're going to get guys like that. But much like Joe said, I'm not big into running backs. There's just too short of a shelf life. If I'm going to put my cornerstones in, they're going to be wide receivers. They're going to be quarterbacks. But then what I'm looking to do is figure out who are people missing. And I'm letting them just dictate who I take. And I might come out with 10 wide receivers and 2 running backs. I genuinely couldn't care less until about August. What my team looks like in terms of positions. What I'm looking for is value. My figure
Assets.
Is that
Yep.
Exactly. Yeah, you can trade that wide receiver, right, Joe, for the running back that maybe went off the board too early when someone realizes they screwed up. I was looking at the CBS draft today, and some of the guys that went robust running back had like Chase Claypool as their wide receiver 1. Trust me, I'll be fine.
Daddy nailed it. I think the people in startups that they fail to realize that is probably the biggest problem is they're trying to create a team instead of just starting to acquire assets. Acquiring assets is what you want to do in these startups. And then you have the leverage over other people or for draft picks. And also what's the worst that could happen? Like some running back, shows up week 1, like Eli Mitchell or somebody like that nobody really necessarily was after. And all of a sudden you're okay. I mean, if there's one thing that's going to propagate itself on the waiver wire, it's probably going to be running backs because they're going to go through so many because they become more disposable in the league the way it's currently structured.
Well, that's a great point. And like some of these guys, like Jamar Chase, right, Justin Jefferson, they can almost be considered, like not misses, right? Like you can't miss on these guys. They've already been productive. They're super young. They're ready to crush it. But then you have other guys, right, who are super undervalued, and people just never get quite up to the ADP that they should be at, such as Chris Godwin. I mean, did some research the other day. He was drafted in 2018 as wide receiver 55, finished as wide receiver 30, drafted as wide receiver 16, finished as wide receiver 2. 2020 was a little bit different, but he got hurt. And then you have 2021, drafted as wide receiver 19, finished as wide receiver 8, and that's in points per game, by the way, minimum 10 games played. So when we have these wide receivers, right? Some get underdrafted, some get overdrafted, and the youth is almost like it's misperceived. So we have guys like DK Metcalf and AJ Brown who have yet to really make that big of a dent in fantasy, yet they're getting drafted last year at least as top 3 wide receivers for that. So Shane, I'm going to go to you on this one. Like, is there a younger player who's just significantly overvalued right now in terms of ADP and in terms of perceived value?
You mean besides Javonte Williams? Javonte Williams.
Shane, sacrilege. Yeah. I love Javonte.
I mean, basically any running back that's drafted in the top 5, I'm like, oh, what are you doing? No. But at least Jonathan Taylor's earned it with a season that was, would have been a top 10 season in most running back seasons. Javonte Williams had an okay season, good season. I'll give him a good season. And the community pumped him up like he was the next running back one. Oh, wait, he is a running back one now. Like he was the overall running back one. I thought we were going to do that with Cam Akers. So I do want to take a second to say I'm proud of the community as a whole for not doing that with Cam Akers. It was on the precipice, right? It was. Mm-hmm. It was ready to tip. All he needed to do was like one 15-yard run in the Super Bowl. And it would have been there, and he couldn't do it.
Yep.
I just Devonta for me. I mean, Elijah Moore. I love Elijah Moore, but he's another one too. We're like, oh no. You have to extrapolate that 4-game run that he had, and that means he is a wide receiver 1. And we're like, well, guys, I mean, I know it's a dirty word to say, he's mostly a slot receiver. Okay, like that's where he's going to work from. And yes, there's some fantastic slot receivers, but it's generally they're not going to be the wide receiver 1 unless they're getting pumped with 170 targets or so, and maybe more will be. But we've already made that leap to, well, it's a definite thing. It's going to happen. Elijah Moore is a top 12 wide receiver. And we did it with Jalen Waddle, too. And now we look even less smart or more stupid or stupider because Tyreek Hill's there. So Tyreek Hill just smacked everyone in the face. And what my problem with that is now everyone's going to go, well, if Tyreek Hill never showed up, Jalen Waddle would have been a top 5 wide receiver. He wasn't going to be a top 5 wide receiver anyway. He's probably going to be top 12, but not top 5. Sorry.
So it's funny because you guys both hit on 2 names that have stuck out to me when looking at DLF's ADP. I was looking at the March one, and Chase's segue and Shane's answer kind of nailed it for me. When I saw Elijah Moore going ahead of Chris Godwin, that's when I started getting nauseous. I was like,
that was going to be my pick.
So we're on the same page there.
Yeah. And I like Elijah Moore as a talent, but it's the Jets, and it's still Zack Wilson. There's still a lot to be determined there. And so I think it's very difficult to rank him ahead of some of the other guys. But go ahead, Daddy.
Yeah, no, it's a perfect point. And for me, it's too late. Like your acquisition window was October and November when people had soured on him. I mean, I loved him coming out of college. There is a ton of talent there, but you hit it on the head. It's the Jets. Like Shane said, it's mostly a slot receiver, and it's not on an offense. And Joe, you covered that earlier about the ecosystem that's going to grow players. Mm-hmm. This is the Jets. And what you saw with their offseason is they decided to spend on borderline tight ends instead of actually improving their team, and were very Jets-like. But yeah, to see him going over players that have been productive, it very much feels like when we put DJ Moore up, I think it was a year ago, we put him up to wide receiver 3 in the preseason, and that hasn't paid off yet. We did it with Amari Cooper. We did it with Sammy Watkins. Like, we have this idea that we can figure out the next big thing, and we skip over the current big thing for it. And I'll never figure that out. And I think that people have been winning Dynasty championships by zigging when people are zagging to that kind of, hey, this guy's going to explode. Another great one. But picking these players over guys that Chase, you're on mute if you're trying to talk, by the way. Picking these players that are going to blow up, instead of taking the guys who already have. It's never made sense to me. So I'm pretty cool with passing on more for Godwin.
Well, one thing, it makes sense if you're not doing it at cost, right?
Mhm.
Like if you're trying to hit on the next big thing, but not paying like he already is the next big thing. Like, yeah, I did that with Juju, and I definitely did that with DJ Moore, and I'm still feeling like pains from those situations where it's like, you know, I went all in on these guys, and I'm still waiting for that return when I probably could have went another way.
Yeah, no, it was kind of funny. I had no intention of you guys actually going to Elijah Moore with this one. My answer was going to be Amon-Ra St. Brown, but it was funny because somebody sent me a trade in one of my leagues that I'm in, and we actually broke it down. But he wanted to trade me Elijah Moore for Antonio Gibson. And I was like that's not even relatively close. And then I went and looked at the rankings, and I was like, man, dude, people have this guy incredibly too high just based off potential. You're almost paying a ceiling, you know, for the value instead of paying for what he might put up or what he should put up on a day-to-day basis. So let's go ahead and hop over to a little bit of a different view. And we saw guys like Amari Cooper, right, who got overdrafted and overvalued in fantasy year after year after year after year. But now he's going a little bit later. I think he's somewhere in the 30s, I believe, for overall draft position, or maybe that's wide receivers just because he is getting up there in age. I think he's 28 years old or so. Is Amari Cooper one of those guys where you can actually go and try and acquire him for a decent price if you have a win now team and he could actually return value? Started with Joe on that one.
Right now he's wide receiver 21 on the consensus on Fantasy Pros and the half PPR. And I think in redraft you can make the argument, depending upon how much time Watson does miss this season in terms of what the suspension is. If it's 4 games or less, you could make a top 10 almost overall. Like you can make wide receiver 1 for Amari Cooper arguments all day long, and I have a hard time arguing against it. I really would. If you are a win now team, it's a good setup. But again, the only pause is the unknown of, well, what's going to happen here for these many weeks. Are we talking 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 4 weeks? It's going to be something most likely. So I think you have to kind of bake that in. So right now, I think 21 is fair. I think if you want to be more aggressive, you can be on Amari Cooper. It's an interesting time to buy because I think that whenever you have a player like Deshaun Watson move and all of a sudden you got those 2 guys attached, there's very little chance that it's not going to be productive. Like, I don't think this is going to be hugely disappointing. It's like, wow, we really whiffed on that. I can't believe Amari Cooper wasn't productive with Deshaun Watson. But on the flip side, if you're trying to get out from Amari Cooper, this is the best time because you know why? Amari Cooper might miss a third of the season with Deshaun Watson, maybe even more. It depends on what that suspension is. So you can make the argument, to me, either way. I think what it comes down to is your roster construction and what sort of team you have and what you can handle. Can you handle a 6-week gap with Amari Cooper having, who knows, Baker Mayfield, somebody else throwing the football? If so, good, then he's valuable to you in that roster. But if you're already kind of stretched thin, last thing you want to do is struggle out of the gate for the first 5-6 weeks of the season.
You're back on mute again, Chase. And so are
Sorry,
you, Shane.
Yes, Shane.
We're killing it.
Shane was on mute the entire show, and when I because I tried to earlier today, he kept muting himself.
You're killing it right now.
So you want me and Joe to just talk? You guys just want to be fans for the day? That's cool.
That's where we have to go. No, Mike, do you have anything else to add to that, or are you pretty much on pace with Joe? Because that's exactly how I feel. I mean, he pretty much nailed it.
Yeah, no, I think for me that when I look at the ADP and where he's falling, there's a couple other guys that fall into the category that I prefer. Mike Evans right now currently going wide receiver 21. Really you're talking about a half a year age difference, although people seem to think that Mike Evans is 20 years older than Amari Cooper. And I think what I'm seeing from Tampa Bay with Brady, not only Brady returning, but also him getting people to come sign 3-year deals tells me I don't think he's back for just this 1 year. I think you may get a couple years from Brady. Deandre Hopkins going at wide receiver 28 right now. He's proven to be a far bigger star than Amari Cooper. Mm-hmm. And then the perennially underrated and far easier to acquire Brandon Cooks, obviously just sitting there down in the wide receiver 30s. All these guys are people that I'm higher on in terms of cost of acquisition and overall play this year than Amari Cooper. I would put Cooper ahead of Cooks in value, but when I just look at the cost of acquisition combined with the talent, I think it's just far easier to get your hands on. Cooper to me is just not a player that I tend to love. Maybe it's old scars. He's disappeared at very big times for me when I have had Amari Cooper on my team. But I agree with Joe. I actually have have Cooper on one squad, and I could not put him on the trade block fast enough when the Watson news hits, because I don't think his value will get higher. I think the ADP is just lagging right now, but I think your cost of acquisition for Amari Cooper obviously has gone up, and we'll see that in the coming months data to a point where I'm probably out. I just think there's other players I can pick up for my win now squad that have far less question marks around them than Cooper.
We were the other day trying to find a comp to Amari Cooper after a show. Andrew Erickson and I were sitting around. I was like, let's find a comp guy historically to Amari Cooper. And we were knocking our heads. And eventually I think I found one. Like, who's a guy that's been around on a couple teams? They could pretty much just put in ink like 1,200 yards somewhere around there, 8 touchdowns, but he's never going to have that season where you're just like blown away. I mean, maybe he will with Watson. Anything's possible. And I ended up landing on Keenan McCardell. Remember Keenan McCardell?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Remember that a guy who played on a couple different teams? Very good player, a player that we all liked in fantasy, a player that had wide receiver 1 games. You'd look up at the end of the year and you go, oh, look at him. He's 1,200 yards or 1,100 yards and 8 touchdowns. That's a good wide receiver. But for some reason, he never quite had that, there's no 1,500 yard. There's no, Julio Jones kind of season or anything like that. And I think whenever I think of Amari Cooper now, I keep reminding myself, like, he's been that guy. The only difference is, now they have Deshaun Watson, there is that, as you were saying, that potential for more. And if someone's going to overpay for that, I'm listening. I'm absolutely listening.
So Mike actually brought up some guys that, kind of work our way into our next segment when he brought up Brandon Cooks and DeAndre Hopkins. So I'm going to go to Shane with this one. Shane, do you have anybody in like the top 10 rounds or below the top 10 rounds or dynasty sleeper that you find would be like a significant value right now that nobody's really talking about?
Shane, you're on mute, by the way.
Thank you, Michael. See, you could have nudged me like that, Chase. I'm just saying. I don't know. I'm doing a startup right now, and I got to be honest with you. After the 7th round, I was like, oh, not these fucking guys. Like, Jesus Christ. Curtis Samuel. If Washington does nothing, I kind of like Curtis Samuel. And by I mean like is a strong word. So I'll draft him. I don't know. We got rookies. I like rookies. I always go rookies because I want upside.
Oh, Joe, do you have anybody in mind that you think is a major steal based on their value right now?
That's an interesting question. Major steal based on the value right now currently. In the wide receiver pool, I think everything is pretty appropriate from what I've seen from early ADPs. Like, nobody really jumps out to me. I think that the Hunter Renfrow devaluing, I think, is a little dangerous just because Devontae Adams is there. I wouldn't go burying Hunter Renfrow, especially in a Josh McDaniels offense. I've watched enough Patriots football in my life to see how they use slot receivers. I just want to kind of remind people, don't bury him. If Justin Fields can shake the dust off of working with Matt Nagy, I think Darnell Mooney is slightly undervalued. A lot of people are on the Cortland Sutton train. I'm still on the Jerry Jeudy one. So Judy's a little undervalued to me currently right now. I think Travis Etienne also is like the 26th running back right now. He's in that same range as like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and I'd rather have Etienne just every day of the week and twice on Sunday. He's going the same spot as Michael Carter, and everybody loves Michael Carter. But Trevor Lawrence, much better quarterback, in my opinion, than Zack Wilson. So in terms of what the potential is for that offense with an upgraded coach, anything's an upgrade over Urban Meyer. I think guys like Etienne are interesting bullet points and guys to look at, because I do think even though they're ranked here, I'm telling you, I feel like in the drafts, when you get in those rooms, they're even more undervalued than where the ranks are, because people are a little hesitant on injury, especially with the running back, and a little hesitant off a team that's been so bad. And that negativity around a bad team sticks to players, I think, sometimes. And sometimes it's fair and other times it's not.
I'll throw out a sleeper for you guys. Somebody that, is way deeper, just because Shane knows that's what I do. Outside of Donovan Peoples-Jones, I'm not going to bring him up, Shane. Not going to do it. You don't have to leave the show this time like you did last week. I want to bring up a player that, I would take a shot with my last pick. I'd take a shot with a late 3rd round pick, and I've never been a fan of his. Like, not since he joined the league. This is the first year that
Kenny Galladay. Is it Kenny Galladay?
It's not Kenny Galladay, but it's close.
Oh, mine was going to be Kenny Galladay.
It's Corey Davis. Corey Davis.
No, you do this. You do this.
Yeah,
You've done this before.
I don't do that.
No, No, you did that before. No,
Don't
we
do
did
that.
this. Just go back to the show from 2020 and
Go
play it again.
Kenny
You'll
Galladay.
be wrong now.
Me
Top
and
room, man. I love it.
Corey
I
Davis.
love this room. This is
We'll
tough.
give you
Yeah.
Kenny
Stop me
Galladay.
to like Corey Davis. Don't even start.
No, don't. Because it's literally, hit rewind and play the same things I said last year. And then hit rewind and hit the same things I said the year before that. And remember that
2018.
1 year I was right about him? Oh, yeah. That's
Yeah,
We're talking
change his
about
name to
the
Corey
last
Coleman,
team
and you got the same guy. I mean, Corey Coleman's up there too.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
I'll
no,
take
take Kenny Galladay. We give
Kenny
you
Galladay's better. Kenny Galladay's better. If you want to do Kenny Galladay, you can do that. I'll allow that one.
Allow it.
I wasn't going to do Kenny Galladay, but Mike,
You
can run
should've.
that one.
No,
I'm going to
I
take
know.
DJ, but I can't take that anymore.
No, for me, it's if we're looking at the running backs, pretty simple. It's Fournette and Connor. I say all the time, I don't care about the date on your birth certificate. I care about how many years you have in your contract. That's what the NFL cares about. And people are going wild over Josh Jacobs because he's so young and whatever he is, 1 year left on his rookie deal, and then he'll be Fournette and Connor, only way more expensive. So, we talked about we're going heavy wide receiver early. Those are the guys I'm grabbing everywhere. Devin Singletary is a guy that fell off the map, running back 34, who is productive. And then, for wide receiver, though, hell, Kenny Galladay has shown more than Corey Davis. So, I mean, if we're gonna go deep there with someone who we're gonna retread, Kenny Galladay is good a choice as any. But the one I was actually going to bring up was DJ Chark. I think that people have just completely written him off. He's still a young guy. He's going to wide receiver 54. I mean, he's 25 years old. He's playing outside receiver for, on his own right now. Everyone's enamored with the Amon-Ra St. Brown, but Chark can still get it done. And at that cost to get a 25-year-old who has a 1,000-yard season under his belt and really what was a terrible offense, there's no reason to think he can't do it again. And then the last one on the list, Mr. I'm looking for $20 million, wide receiver 58 is Jarvis Landry. He will land somewhere. He is bankable. He's a guy I'm looking at. And then Chase isn't going to be surprised with this. But if you have followed me for any amount of time and Kendrick Bourne isn't on your roster, I can't help you anymore. Just put him on your roster and go to Trophy Smack. As Chase knows, I'll tell you what 6 weeks he'll be good. I'll tell you what matchups he'll be fine. And you'll get a wide receiver 2 for free for 6 weeks out of the year. So why aren't you doing that? Those
the other guy too that I would throw out there is KJ Osborne, because I feel like the Adam Thielen clock is about to strike midnight, and I don't want it to because I love Adam Thielen. He's a great player. It's a great story, but I feel like every year we get a little closer to it and the style of play. And if he somehow misses significant time again, when Osborne had targets, Osborne performed. And that's another offense that I think is better than people realize. And I think, refreshing the offense a little bit with the new head coach that they brought in is also a good plan of action. So that's another guy too. And I would just kind of circle because it's more about opportunity that he might have a lot more of it potentially this year. Whereas Thielen is a stock that I think it's like hovering on the brink. I remember watching the same thing happen with, other wide receivers, the Edelmans of the world, some other guys too, where you just like smaller guys taking a pounding. They're incredibly productive. And that drop-off isn't incremental. It happens in a snap, and there's just a little worry that we're getting closer to that edge and to that precipice there with Thielen, and therefore Osborne becomes interesting to me.
Well, Chase, your question confused me as usual. I thought we were looking for just late-round guys, but okay, no, that's fine.
I think
I'm going to need to – we're going to have a call before the show from now on so you can explain your show sheet to me because I never know what you're talking about.
That's because you don't look at the show sheet until we start the show.
Man.
I got you there.
Whatever, facts. I like both Pittsburgh receivers, to be honest with you. Deontay Johnson, wide receiver 13 in Dynasty is that's just offensive. That's people holding their biases and refusing to let them go.
When he lets go is balls. He can't catch him still.
What was his drop rate last year?
No, it was good last year. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. And Chase Claypool's all the way down at wide receiver 40. And I know, look, he's like the discount DK Metcalf. Like he can't separate like DK and he's not quite as fast and he's not quite as jumpy. But at wide receiver 40, I'm willing to see if he can give me some wide receiver 2 weeks.
Discount DK Metcalf. You are meant to be getting a huge sale, my friend. I mean, that's like saying, well, I had a steak, but I'll go to Arby's because it's just discount. High-end steak.
What's wrong with Arby's?
That's why you're drafting.
They have all the meats.
Exactly. They have the meats.
Oh my God. All right. Let's go ahead and hop on to this next game we have. We're going to play Which One Doesn't Belong. I'm going to bring up 3 players. We're going to say which one doesn't belong. Typically, there's a reason why I'm bringing up these 3 players, so I'll try to dive into it very briefly. We're going to go with DLF's ADP, Kirk Cousins, Derek Carr, and Zack Wilson. Which one does not belong in this ADP range? We'll start out with Joe.
Well, Zack Wilson doesn't belong there yet. I'm sorry. I mean, look, I'm not saying the kid doesn't have talent. I'm not saying that if you give him a nice clean pocket, he can't throw the football. I'm not saying he can't make plays, because he can. We saw at BYU. He was also playing against inferior talent with a great offensive line at BYU. So I don't want to I don't want to say the kid can't get to that tier. But Derek Carr was tremendous last year. And now you just give him Devontae Adams and a coach who knows what he's doing when it comes to managing an offense. And Kirk Cousins, we can crap on Kirk Cousins, and it is fair. The jokes are fair. But at the end of the day, he's always going to have that run in the season of like 10 weeks where he's really good. And you know what? When Zack Wilson does that, call me. I'd like to hear it, and I'd like to see it. And that's great. But right now, give me Cousins and give me Carr. Wilson does not belong in that group right now.
Mike, who you got?
Oh, this is easy. This is the Twitter versus championships thing. Zack Wilson is possibly the sexy one that everyone will give you likes and retweets and tell you how wonderful you are. But yeah, you win with Derek Carr and Kirk Cousins. I don't care how much you hate these guys. They produce
boring, old, white, stand in the pocket quarterbacks who can't move for a
That's all I have. Sure. I have one team. What is it? I think it's Kitchen Sink 3 with Ryan McDowell. My quarterbacks are Carr, Cousins, and Tannehill. I mean, you can call me old white guys. I don't care. We made the playoffs, and that's all you need. And I can assure you the Zack Wilson team did not. It's simple. You want production. You want, boring is perfect for me. And these guys have been ADP steals for years. Zack Wilson, if he got to that level, would be a success considering what we've seen so far from him.
Shane, do you have a different view, or do you want to move on to the next one?
No, we can move on. It's just, the disrespect Kirk Cousins gets.
Like, I did it. That's why
he's QB1, QB2. Like, he's a QB13 at worst every year. Yeah.
All right. J.K. Dobbins, Cam Akers, or the 101 in this year's draft, a.k.a. Breece Hall. Which one does not belong?
Boy. I'm going to say Cameron Akers.
Okay. What was the tough decision there for you?
I mean, him and J.K., I love Dobbins. Like, I loved him coming out of school. Like, he was the best running back in that class. Unfortunately, things did not land his way, and he's coming back from a severe injury. I mean, it's no more severe than Cam Akers, except that Cam Akers was actually able to play last year after rupturing all his patellas and ACLs and whatever various ligaments are in your legs. And Breece Hall, I've already got as a top 5 dynasty running back, which means I'm never going to be able to draft him outside of a rookie class. So yeah, that's just I'm going to go with Cam. I don't think he's as good as Dobbins, so he's the one that's out. Bye,
Mike. Are you saying bye to the same one, or you take?
Yeah, no, that was perfect. I mean, I had Dobbins as my running back 3 in that rookie class. Akers 5. Obviously, neither have shown much because of injury. So I'm going to stick with what I think is more talented. I don't think Breece Hall belongs in the conversation, I guess, because that was the question. I would take the 101 over both of them by a significant margin. So I think if we want to talk about who doesn't belong, I think Akers and Dobbins are closer to each other than Breece Hall. So I don't know if you're looking at which one doesn't belong upward, because it's the 101. If you look at it from that angle, I guess. But if you look at it on who's the worst of the bunch, it's Cam Akers.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy because I saw a bunch of trade questions over there on Twitter over the past week or so, which kind of posed the question because people were trading J.K. Dobbins and Cam Akers for like the 102 and the 105 or the 101 or, a combination of different things. So I'm like, dude, do people realize that they're literally giving away a better running back for a lesser running back unless Joe disagrees and thinks that Breece Hall will end up falling behind one of these 2 running backs?
I'm Italian, so I love a good argument, but I can't. It's Cam Akers for me. And it's because he is replaceable. And we saw it this year. And I like Cam Akers. Cam Akers has had some great moments. I think Cam Akers is certainly going to be the foregoing running back in this offense. But the problem is I can't compare it to Dobbins because the Ravens are still going to probably be more of a run-first attack regardless. And then that just leaves, the 1-1, and I want the 1-1. And if it's Breece Hall, if it's Walker, however you see those guys, that's fine. But for Cam Akers, it's it's just a matter of, once again, I'm looking at the roster and the identity of this football team, and it's Matthew Stafford slinging the football around. They just brought in Allen Robinson. They know exactly who they are and what they want to be, and they're going to continue to throw the football. And yeah, it's going to be frustrating because Cam Akers is probably going to get more. If Cam Akers stays healthy, even if he's middling, he'll have enough touchdowns that'll probably inflate his value because they'll get down to the 1 or something like that, and he'll just fall in the end zone. And you go, oh, what a great season for Cam Akers. But that's very possible, but he does not belong to me in this grouping. And I know Akers is probably going over J.K. Dobbins in many drafts.
Yeah, he is. And it's kind of funny you said falling in the end zone because J.K. Dobbins scored 8 of his 9 carries were touchdowns inside the 5-yard line. So you talk about falling in the end zone, J.K. Dobbins knows how to do it, baby. So I'm on board with all you guys. Now let's bring up 3 players who have seen, somewhat of the spotlight at certain points throughout their careers, but now they kind of look to be on a downturn. So for dynasty purposes, Chubb, Cook, and Henry, I feel like they're all kind of falling in the same area. I feel like Cook's getting a little bit more disrespect than the rest of them, but should he? Joe, we'll start out with you.
Look, I'm not ready to, get rid of Derrick Henry yet. So I'm just not ready. I'm not going to do it. I didn't want to do it this year. I didn't want to do it last year. I know this year he did get hurt. He was still magnificent. So if I'm going to bet on one of these guys, it's still going to be Henry. I've always struggled with Cook because Cook has been hurt and missed time in every season. So to me, he's had the most run of that guy who's had so much at the top and has already had an injury history. So Chubb is a little bit cheaper. So I think a better investment. We haven't seen Chubb play with a quarterback that can move the chains the way Deshaun Watson can. So there's a part of me that is really intrigued by what that looks like. And I think there's a ceiling there that we haven't really even tapped into Nick Chubb that we saw a couple years ago when he almost beat out Derrick Henry for the rushing lead. Yeah. But to me, if I'm going to get rid of one of these guys, believe it or not, it's going to be Cook, which I think is probably, an unpopular answer. But I think the history of Dalvin Cook worries me a little bit more than even the workload of Derrick Henry or the fact that, Chubb has missed some time also in these last 2 seasons. So for me, actually, Cook is the guy that I would get rid of. And again, people are going to fight me on that. That's fine.
Mike, which one are you looking to send away if you had to send one of them away?
Man, I feel like you brought 2 Italians on the show, and we're not going to fight at all. This is weird.
I know this is
but I'm going to go Cook. I mean, the fact is these guys, production-wise, talent-wise, there's no doubt they're all super talented. Cook has a lot of things, in my opinion, going against him when you look at he does have potential legal trouble still coming to him that I think we forgot about because of how crazy the offseason has been. He has a player on the roster in Alexander Madison that they have to make a decision on before next year about whether or not they're going to go forward with Cook or Madison in the backfield, which makes me a little nervous. And then with Chubb, I don't know if I'm reading the tea leaves too far here, but the tender that they placed on Dearness Johnson still leads me to believe that Kareem Hunt may not be on the roster come week 1. And if you're talking about Chubb in that offense without Hunt taking the carries that he's taken over the year, I do think the ceiling is extremely high. And Joe hit the nail on the head. Derrick Henry until he decides he's not Derrick Henry. He's the one in this group that has the potential to be the RB1. He was before the injury, obviously, which allowed Jonathan Taylor to be the RB1, the guy we were talking about earlier, but it was Henry's by a wide margin before he went down. So there's no way I'm giving up on a guy who showed just 6 months ago or 8 months ago that he's still the best running back in football. He stays every time. So I'll also be getting rid of Dalvin Cook.
Shane, did that injury to Henry scare you off of Henry long-term, or are you looking to get rid of Cook as well? Because I know you like Nick Chubb. And you're on mute, by the way.
This is not my day with mute. For once, I'm actually trying to be, I don't know, whatever the word is, whatever, responsible, so no one hears me cursing under my breath. But if you weren't moving off of Derrick Henry as a 28-year-old running back, I don't know that a broken foot really is going to mean that much to you because you probably assume he's an outlier of a human being, which he is, so no, I bought him. Of course, I bought into him last year and then he got injured and I was like, fuck it. I'm just going to go all in against all my inhibitions. I'm trading for a 28-year-old running back, knowing this is a bad process. And then he broke his foot for whatever that's worth. I would trade Cook too, but only because he's got the most trade value. Wait, is that what we're talking about? That's
also a good point.
Yeah. I don't know what we're talking. I don't know what your concept is.
You think that he has more trade value than Henry?
I'm looking at the startup value. Yeah, trading Henry is hard, man, because as much as people want to, they want to acquire him, they start going, this is a terrible process move. And it's also, by the way, a terrible process move to trade for Chubb or Dalvin Cook because they're 26, which means they're in the back end of their careers. But I like, for some reason, Chubb's the lowest in ADP of the three. I'm not really sure why. But Sean Watson, he might run for 20 touchdowns this year.
Right. That's what I can't get that out of my head, Shane. Like, what does he look like in an offense that's efficient and productive? Because he's never been. He's never been, man.
What about if Cook ends up in an offense that's even more efficient than what he saw, though? That's where my brain's going with that one. And Henry didn't look right.
It's hard to imagine like Cook's numbers getting any better than they've been. Like, he's already hit that huge ceiling of numbers. And I don't know. I mean, it's just I think Shane's best point is, of all these guys, it's probably the easiest to move Dalvin Cook. So therefore, go get what you can for him.
All right. So we have Hopkins, right? We have Mike Thomas and we have Mike Williams. Two of these guys have kind of hit their peaks. Meanwhile, one saw the beginning of his peak hit at the beginning of last season when he started the first 5 weeks of the season. I think it's wide receiver 1, and then ended up falling off. Meanwhile, Michael Thomas has to come back and reassert himself. Hopkins has to show that he can stay healthy. Shane, start out with you, man. Like, is there a certain player in this category that you believe in or don't believe in?
I guess we'll do this since I was making fun of him last year, calling him a tight end. DeAndre Hopkins, that dude looked cooked to me. I mean,
Mike's getting mad down there.
No, he is. The problem is then I have to keep Mike Williams, and Mike Williams has shown us what he is. Right? He did have a 4-game stretch there where he flashed, and we were like, "Wow, this is what he could be." And then he was like, "No, I can't. Look at the rest of my career and look at the rest of this season. No, this is not what I am." So Nook should still see 140 targets, and even if he's not efficient with them, and he is basically a souped up Zach Ertz, he's still going to produce. Slant Boy is the only wide receiver.
Zach Ertz.
Like, it's on his t-shirt.
It's basically souped up Zach Ertz. That's all he is now. That's fine.
Oh,
he had a great career.
Jeez, dude, the disrespect. Jake, how old is he? How old is he? Is he washed yet?
Who? Nope.
Hopkins, is he washed yet?
No, he's 29.
He's 29. He's dead.
And Shane makes this point that wide receivers can stay relevant until they're 32, but after they turn 28, they're not relevant anymore.
Not him. No. Wide receivers can, elite ones. Nook was never elite. You can fight me on that.
We're gonna.
We're going to.
Now you're talking crazy.
Target-driven.
No, please.
I don't know. He was in it. I didn't watch a lot of them. I didn't.
No, you didn't. That's clear.
No, that's fine. But no, I think Nook's done. But I'll still take him over Mike Williams, and I'll take both Mike Thomas over both of them.
Okay. Mike, you're up, man.
Yeah. So do you know that meme that goes around that a bunch of people in business suits and then Big Bird? In this equation, Mike Williams is Big Bird. What the hell is he doing? Where did you come up with the question that puts Mike Williams with DeAndre Hopkins and Michael Thomas, unless you're talking about lining them up by height? Because legitimately, that's the only thing that would put him in the same category. It is almost embarrassing to have Mike Williams in this group. Like, I feel bad for Hopkins and Thomas that you disrespected them this badly. You have two wide receivers that have shown overall wide receiver 1 seasons, and Mike Williams, who can't go a half without the trainers coming out and checking on him because he doesn't know how to land on his feet. I mean, it's disrespectful to the highest degree. I don't like. I almost, if I read the show sheet, which I didn't, I might not have shown up. That's how offended I am by your question and the audacity that you have of calling DeAndre Hopkins Zach Ertz. This whole show has become a mockery, and I'm considering bowing.
I said souped up. But clearly, he's still a little bit faster than Zach Ertz.
So, sorry, I got so offended, but I am angry, and I'm going to let Joe go before I say something I might regret. And cost.
I was hoping you keep going till you said something you regret, because I think this is great. I couldn't agree more. One of these is not like the other, and it's Mike Williams. I mean, call me when Mike Williams has a wide receiver 1 season. I mean, you got Michael Thomas, who is I know it was with Drew Brees. I know he is gone, but he was arguably the 1-1 pick a couple years ago. DeAndre Hopkins, no matter what drugs Shane was on for the majority of DeAndre Hopkins' early career, He's an incredible wide receiver. He's right in the sense that, yes, he looked trash last year. He looked done. But I think that's what happens sometimes when you're dealing with a soft tissue injury and you're trying to play through it. And I think he just was. I think he was trying his best to say, I'm okay. I'm going to go through it. And he really was not okay. And he was trying to gut it out. And I give him a lot of credit for that. But unfortunately, it crushed a lot of fantasy teams. But a healthy DeAndre Hopkins this training camp goes a long way. So Mike Williams, look, a couple great games is what Mike Williams does every year. He just happened to put them all in the beginning of the year this year. And therefore, everyone thought it was a breakout. And everyone thought they were the smartest person alive until week 6. And then they were like, oh, wait, I'm not. Oh, wait, it's just he did all at once. So, and when they draft another wide receiver in the draft in the first round this year, if they do, I don't know what happens to Mike Williams' value. I really don't.
Joe, do you have any thoughts on who that wide receiver might be?
Oh, God. Jameson Williams, maybe? No, it's been the running bit on the show that every time we do a mock, somehow Erickson gets that pick. And somehow for the Chargers, he always drafts Jameson Williams. So this time I told him, you can't pick for the Chargers no matter what we do today. You can't do it because we got to do something different there. And then Bogman took, who'd he take? He took Brown, right? No, who'd he take? Now I got to go back and look. I don't even remember who he took. But at any rate, look, the point is this. The point is, Mike Williams just is not in the same realm. So once you have that situation, you can't look at these other two guys. They're true number ones. Williams isn't even the best wide receiver on his own team. I think that's something that, you have to understand. So, that's Jordan Davis. That's who he took, right? Jordan Davis is defensive tackle, right? Okay. So that's look, and they need that, but if they do take a wide receiver, it would not shock me. And it wouldn't shock me if he was better than Mike Williams.
According to DLF ADP, we have Hopkins at wide receiver 28. We have Mike Williams at wide receiver 36, and we have Michael Thomas at wide receiver 40. So just saying, that's according to DLF. It wasn't me that decided to say that Mike Williams is in that crew. That's why I wanted to pull.
Well, that's a pretty wide range. That's like 28 to 40 is like huge, dude.
I also went to Dynasty Trade Calculator and I was looking up trades that occurred over the past few months. So those guys were kind of involved in a few different ones. So I wanted to throw that one out there for the community. And I think I got a Facebook question that actually had 2 of those guys in there. So that's what kind of spawned the idea. All right, we have Amon-Ra St. Brown. We have Michael Pittman and any 2022 rookie receiver. Anyone that you want, no matter what your preference is. So let's just say the 102, 103, whatever you feel like the first receiver should go off the board. Would you rather have Amon-Ra St. Brown, Michael Pittman, or whatever rookie wide receiver you want?
Any rookie wide receiver I want. And it's going to be Treylon Burks.
Okay. Are you in agreement, Joe? Because Mike just said the same thing.
What, the Treylon Burks over those guys? Is that what they're saying? The Amon-Ra St. Brown run, I don't think is a complete fluke either. I mean, when's the last time you saw somebody for 6 straight weeks get like 12 targets? I mean, I haven't seen that.
Wide receiver on a team.
Mike Williams.
No. Okay, let me rephrase. When's the last time you saw somebody get 12 targets and catch double digits every single week for 6 weeks? Let me rephrase. That's fair. That is fair. But I mean, in Dynasty, I'm probably higher on these wide receivers coming into the draft. There's some really good ones, all the way, down to that Pickens and Sky Moore group. I really like all those guys. I know everyone's so high on Pittman this year and everyone wants to anoint him. I think I'd rather have the rookie wide receiver, to be honest with you, long term than either of those guys. Because, Pittman's a nice player, but once again, I want to see it. And if I hadn't seen it yet, then why don't I want to take a player who's already a couple of years into the league when I could take a rookie who I already think has a bigger ceiling than either of these two guys? I think that's the mindset I have. How about you guys?
No, it's funny. God, Chase.
No, I like Pittman. I like his situation. I know that his production was primarily based on game flow last year and whether or not Jonathan Taylor was able to move the rock 5 yards per carry or not. So, I mean, he was completely game scripted out on certain occasions. But, yeah, I like Michael Pittman moving forward. I think that Matt Ryan is a lot better passer than Carson Wentz. I think that he knows how to get his receivers open. I think he knows how to make adjustments at the line as well. So if he sees Michael Pittman one-on-one with a guy that's 5'10", instead of being Carson Wentz and checking it down and sticking in the pocket, instead of sticking in the pocket, you're going to see Matt Ryan be able to make a lot of those plays that we didn't see happen in 2021. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get you guys out of here. I know that Joe has his show to do, and I know that Mike has bedtime. So, Joe, where can we find you, man? What you got going on? And go ahead and plug your Twitter Spaces too.
Oh, for me. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Well, yeah, Twitter Spaces right now. Me and Matthew Friedman from Fantasy Pros are going to be doing that. I appreciate you guys having me on the show. Obviously, you can follow me on the Twitter machine at Joe Pisapia 17 and at Fantasy Pros, and of course the Fantasy Black Book on Amazon. And this is a fun room. I love a bunch of passionate, smart people who don't give a two you know whats, and that's my kind of people. So I enjoyed this quite a bit. It's refreshing to me too, because I'd like to drop more F-bombs on my show. I don't get to do it, as you know, I get fired. It was just nice to be in a room where that's the tone a little bit too, because it breaks it up for me. You know, when you got to be like, you know, ABC all the time, it's nice to come here and get that little passion again. So I appreciate those guys for bringing it right here.
I love it. Mike, what's going on with you, man? What you got going on?
Oh, man. So I have just launched, I'm doing a Dynasty strategy series for the offseason. So basically, I'm trying to break down Dynasty for people who are newer and don't understand. So I'm taking that topic and trying to make it like step by step, easy to digest. We did rebuilding last week, just submitted to the editors, trading. And hoping to get people more in line with kind of how to trade, when to trade, you know, what value you should be looking for. A lot of the topics we touched upon at the beginning of the show, and keep it rolling. And as you know, my weekly is on Trophy Smack, where we do deep dives. I will tell you when Kendrick Bourne is going to be worth playing and playing like that. So always looking for those outside the top 25s, because everyone else is telling you who the top 10 is. That's boring. So I'll dive into those wide receiver 50s that are going to blow up that every week on Trophy Smack, and a little irreverent in the tone, as you know, but have some fun with it. So
Shane, what you got, man?
Just dropped the DLF Dynasty Draft Guide 2022 literally a few hours ago. It was a surprise to me. Not that it was coming out, that it came out. I knew it was coming out, obviously. So
I knew it was coming out too. That's why I subscribed yesterday.
Yeah. So if you're a DLF subscriber already, awesome. You already get it, whatever. But if you're not a subscriber and you go get the guide, you get a subscription too, or something like that. I don't know.
What a salesman, boy!
Yeah.
If you do the other thing, maybe
Yeah,
something else. I don't know.
What I need you to do
Hey,
is
when's our next show today? We have another show in a couple hours, you and me?
10 o'clock.
All right.
Just fax DLF and let them know that the reason you subscribed is because of the Dynasty Draft Guide. So check that out.
Oh, man. And,
I'm sorry. One last thing. Make sure you sub to Dynasty Trades and 5 on YouTube. We're closing in on our 1,000th follower.
nice,
That's not what they call them on there. Whatever the fuck they're called.
subscriber. Subscribe.
just do that. Fax DLF and subscribe, or whatever YouTube calls it, to Shane's channel. Yeah.
I don't care.
If you
You know
can't
what?
get it, write him a letter.
I bet that totally drives more subs and things than like what I didn't do all day. Where I'm like, presented, people are like, yeah, that guy sounds like he doesn't really care, so I'm going to subscribe to it. So
Don't show them.
I'm going to take that approach next time. Be like, yeah, Fantasy Pros, whatever, follow us. We got a bunch of stuff, whatever. Mock draft.
Or don't. No one will care if you're there. Honestly, I won't even notice. I had a guy tell me he was unfollowing me. I wrote back, I'm like, I don't know who you are. I wasn't paying attention, but sorry, I disappointed you. What do you want me to do, sir?
More followers, more problems, baby.
So
Look at
that was the perfect timing, Balls' life, because he was asking about the Fantasy Intervention Listener League. And this trophy came in from Trophy Smack over there.
Do they know what you did to that trophy?
Oh,
Because I saw a video of you romancing it very awkwardly.
It was amazing. So, anyways, if you guys go over to Trophy Smack, trophysmack.com, use promo code CIRCLE. If you purchase a trophy or a belt, you'll get a free ring along with the purchase. Just
Why
make
do
sure
you get
promo
to
code
use your promo code and not mine?
Because Shane,
I'm
You know
not
what?
Shane. I'm Mike, and I'm the
I mean,
guest. Don't
no,
we get to use promo code?
So, anyways, real quick, go use promo code CIRCLE over there. Get a free ring with the purchase of a trophy or a belt. TrophySmack.com. Make sure you guys hit subscribe on YouTube, like, and of course, leave us a comment if you guys watch it after the show is live. Let us know that you're in here after the show and ask us any questions. We'll answer them over there on YouTube. Thank you guys for tuning in, and thank you all for letting us intervene with your fantasy football life.